Hey y'all, thank you for clicking on a video, visiting my channel. This is Eccentric Mystic, and I'm here this morning on Sunday, April the 12th, with something special. And I hope it is received as such because it's like a pull for me to do it. Um, for me to just kind of speak freely, not really too much with the cards. I did pull out two oracle cards. Well, two oracle cards came out. I did shuffle from two different oracle decks. One deck is the Rumi's Gift, and I see the card. It's Wisdom, and the other one came from my Earth Magic oracle deck, and it's Winter Solstice Reflection, which definitely aligns with the way that I'm feeling. I feel like this is going to be just like a reflective um share from me. It's Sunday. I don't have work. I went to the gym, got up early, went and handled a little bit of business. Still have a little bit more to handle, and then yeah. But I just, I was out and about today, and I be in my own little world, lolly lolly la type of stuff, la di da di da, like that. And I noticed, it's just so beautiful outside. Like where I live is beautiful. And while I was driving, at one point, I said, man, I live in probably one of the most beautiful environments. I love the greenery. It's green. I love the nature. And just to see it and set my eyes on it often makes me feel very nice on the inside. Even if I'm not like out sitting in nature, I can look at all the trees as I'm driving, and it just brings a nice feeling over me. So I did that today at one point, really a few different times. Also, something else that got me feeling good, can't lie. I found a new drink that I like, a new energy drink, and it just hit the spot. So it's just a good day. And I'm gonna also say I did my calculations, I did my my sacred numerology stuff that I be doing, and the number for today is the number 8, and that is a number that is very important for me this year. And it was showing up and showing up and showing up, and this is it, yeah, something about it. So let me get into a little bit of a channeling, because I did have a song come through as I was prepping to get on and record, which lets me know whatever else is going to come through is related to this song. The song that came through, one of the most beautiful songs ever, "My First Love" by Avant and Kiki Winans. I'm sorry, Kiki Wyatt. Um, and I mean, one of the most beautiful songs ever, right? Um, Especially for a person is who describes herself as a lover, as I do. I'm a lover, and that's something that's been big lately in my life to just kind of embrace yet again. After just all of the spiritual warfare that I've gone through, it's kind of like, at my age now of 36, I just kind of realized that a lot of what I've gone through has literally been to test my strength in the area of love. Like, love is not a weak thing. To be in love is not a weak state of being. To be a lover is not it's not a weak um thing to be. It's not a weak position to fulfill. It's actually pretty tough and hard, especially in a world that wants to do away with love. Okay, that wants to do away with soul and passion, when these are the very things that make life life. Like, you're not going to get life without love, passion, creation, soul, you know, creativity, like true creativity. Like, the best artists in the world, they have love. They come from love. They are of love. They are for love. In any kind of way, shape, or form, they're aligned with the essence of love. Okay, so the song "My First Love" is what channel it started coming through to me. I have not been listening to the song, so that's how I know this is a part of my message for today. And I just want to, like, go over some of the lyrics, or at least just recite some of the lyrics, and then go from there. So, um, Avant starts, "Silhouette of a perfect frame." Now that reminds me of a reading that I did recently, and the oracle card had came out from another deck, um, and it was perfection, or the perfection of your life is what was written on that card. It just reminded me of that card. It says, "Shadows of your smile will always remain. Shadows of your smile will always remain. Beginner's love soon fades away. We go on. I will always. Long as I live, you will be my first love. Long as I live, you will be my first love, and I choose you again." Hmm. So that sounds like what is it? Reconciliation type. I wasn't really um yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that, but that's what it say, and I choose you again. Um, I'm gonna stop right there because I do think that for myself, this is like just a free share. I think I'm gonna call it like Sacred Sundays. Um, as a former Christian, I'm not a Christian, but doesn't mean that I'm demonic. So I hope folks listening are willing to be open minded. I'm not I don't label myself as any as a part of any particular religious group. I used to be a Christian because that was the description of the religious affiliation of the family I was um raised in, you know. So it was something put on me. It wasn't something I chose, but I was always studious in school and in church. So eventually I was led to free myself up from such parameters and be more free in my spiritual explorations, as spirituality is the core of my life, you know. So, but as a former Christian, Sundays were obviously always special. I went to church almost every Sunday, up until the age of 24. Um, just about. I was in church every Sunday, just about in a choir. Sometimes I would even lead Sunday school. Sometimes Wednesday's Bible study I would attend, or I would lead, mostly just attend. Choir rehearsal on Thursdays, sometimes special events on Saturdays. Like, church was huge. And I took it very seriously because I think I just take spirituality seriously. So, but with that, Sundays were always special, right? We would wake up in the morning, get ready to go to church. And so to this day, Sunday does kind of hold a special essence for me. Just the freedom, especially now that I don't like adhere to any particular schedule of any particular group, and I just do my own thing. I do realize the serenity or the specialness. It is something about Sundays, especially with like not working. So that is something that I usually try to aim for. Like, if I can have a schedule where I don't have to work on Sundays, that does work best for my mental, for my spirit, my body. Um, so yeah, something about Sundays, especially with me driving around this morning and like it's not a lot of traffic outside. That's something I also just appreciate. I appreciate like the lack of busy outside, and I'm pretty sure it's because a lot of people, I mean, they're either sleeping in or they're in church, especially with where I live. A lot of them are probably in church. But yeah, so Sundays were always special, and it's kind of like becoming special again for me in regards to just my own individual spirituality, my own spiritual self care, self love type, like just me taking care of me, because that is a central part of my life. I take care of me, like for real, in and out, and all throughout. And so yeah, um so now with the lyrics, let me look back at the lyrics. You would always be keep an eye on times. Okay, no. Um I choose you again. And so it's just kind of like, I don't know, today is just heavy on my mind. Like, some things that's heavy on my mind have actually been in relation to my past experiences in church. And with church, it was, very much tied in with family. But my background is I was put into foster care and then adopted, and all that started at a very early age. So the family I was raised with was pretty much like the family that I knew. And that family was very tied into church. And so then with the church family, it was like they were extended family, so it was kind of all one thing. And really, in terms of the family I was raised with, outside of our home, there was nothing else that we would really do as a group beyond church. Like, church was huge. Um, so there is this sense of first love there, right? That's crazy. Because before the song came up in my head, I was thinking a lot about like my experiences in church growing up. And there is a sense of first love in regards to my experiences in church. Singing in the microphone, singing in the choir, leading a lot of songs, um, being a part of a group that, for the most part, is focused on goodwill, but honestly, one reason I tore myself away from religion is because of all the hypocrisy, the dogma, the just the control, like groups, pastors, whatever, spiritual leader, religious leaders, I should say, first of all, because everybody who is religious is not spiritual, right? And so, just like after realizing like the control of my life that those leaders and groups would try to have, I didn't appreciate that. And I didn't appreciate that for anybody, you know. But before I began to like really awaken, even though I feel like I always was awakening growing up, because I would ask the questions that nobody wanted to answer, I would study beyond the sermon time. I'd make take notes. Like I said, I was studious. I'd take notes. I'd go home. I'd review what we went over. Like, took it very seriously. Um, and I don't know. I think it's just because I really resonated with the story of Jesus, the story of Moses, the story of um uh Joseph. Joseph, yeah, the one that was betrayed by his brothers. I really resonated with a lot of different characters throughout the Bible that I would learn about. Um, and uh, you know, it's crazy because I think my resonance with those characters and with those stories is a part of what led me away from religion. And it's just so crazy because it's like, I could say, well, even Jesus spoke on this kind of stuff. Like, he said, like, he was not aligned with the Pharisees. And I think the word, I never knew how to say the word, but it's like Sadducee, Sadducee, something like that. He was basically talking about the religious leaders. And at a young age, I started seeing like those same types of characters in my churches that I would attend or in my religious groups that I was a part of. I'm like, Jesus, y'all want to preach about Jesus and push Jesus down people's throats, and you know and your interpretations of the Bible and these stories down people's throats and into people's heads so so much. And from what I am seeing in my own individual perspective, which was always very strong, um Jesus wouldn't even approve of y'all. Like, it was a lot of them. Jesus wouldn't even approve of y'all, like, you know but eventually I realized, like, spirituality is an individual thing. My relationship with God is an individual thing, and it does not involve other people. It's mine. It's mine and my own. So there's that concept of first love, or that idea of first love, for sure. Like, I was really heavy into church. Like, even compared to my peers, like my peers, I wouldn't even always relate to my peers because church either wasn't in their life, it wasn't something that they did, or if they did it, they didn't really care about it like that. They went because they had to. But I would soak it up. I would, like I said, eventually I even started, I mean, as a youth myself, leading youth teachings, youth classes, in my church that I grew up going to. um so it really was, something that I was really huge about and important to me. I would meet guys, that I would date, and then I would bring them to church. I would. Matter of fact, wow, now I'm being led to kind of talk about, I guess, in a way, this person could be considered like a first love kind of thing. Even though I wasn't yet really that grown. I wouldn't call it like my first grown relationship. It was probably my first like real relationship. Like this is my boyfriend. My family knows about him. I took him to church. My godfather, who was a chair deacon of my church, he knew about him. So it wasn't something like, oh, this my secret little boyfriend. It's like, no, he was involved, he was around. And yeah, now I'm being led to talk about him. That's crazy. Because yeah, I did bring him to church. I did bring him to church, and he was a gangster. He was a straight up gangster. He was a crip. Um and he was a Taurus. And I met him at school, and I actually first met him in the 6th grade, but uh, I had left. We moved away from where I was primarily raised. It was like far away, still in California, but far away from where I was being raised primarily. And then, so that means for the 7th and 8th grade, I was away. But then for high school, we came back to that area, and I saw him again in high school, and kind of remembered him from middle school days. But I do remember now. I didn't think I was gonna be talking about this. That's interesting. I do remember now. Um, Ninth grade. I was in the ninth grade. Um, was I in the ninth? No, because ninth grade that would have been baby campus because we had a campus just for the ninth graders, but still a part of the same high school as the other campus where the 10th through 12th graders were. So this would have been 10th grade because I was at the big campus. Um, and that's when I met him. And I remember I thought that he was a ninth grader because there were some ninth graders that would be at the big campus. And I remember he sent somebody over to talk to me or tell me that he liked me, and I rejected him. I'm pretty sure I probably was already talking to somebody else, and that was the primary reason why. But he wasn't ugly. I thought he was younger. And um, yeah, that's so crazy. Why am I talking about this boy right now? And that's so crazy. But you know what? What's interesting is I was thinking about him not too long ago, just a little bit, but not so much in terms of him. I was thinking about him in terms of that time of my life. So I think this is important right now for me to dive into. I was thinking about that time of my life when I dated him. And what was big about that time of my life is I was so innocent. Not that I'm not innocent anymore, but I say I was untainted. I was untainted. I was still very much even though I went through a lot, from when I was younger. Like I said, foster care, um so, separation from my biological family, including three siblings, my mother going in prison and jail. But I was kind of shielded from a lot of what was true about my biological family because I was taken away from them at a young age or given away or whatever. But even the house I grew up in, I mean, there was still a lot of situations that would go on inside of the house I grew up in, from different types of abuse, just chaos, trauma, drama. Like, it was a single parent household as well. It was a lot of darkness and turmoil there. But I think that the first love thing is, I mean, I did find at the time, of course, with church utilizing this term more so than anything else, I found God. I knew I met God at a young age. The only reason why I struggle with that term is because so many people have misused and abused it so much with me, around me. And I had to disassociate myself from that term. And I had to find another way to continue in my spiritual journey, knowing and appreciating the higher power in my life. But the word God, it was just like not, it's kind of like having a father, right? Having a father in your life, but he's probably absent or just not good to you or whatever, so that you don't really feel like, damn, that's my father. So you don't call him father, you don't call him daddy, you call him by his name, or you don't refer to him at all. It kind of became like that, and more so because, well, things I went through, yeah, but then also because of just, I mean, imagine growing up going to church, And in the church, you have pedophiles, you have family members, or let's say you have women who protect the pedophiles. You feel me? You have child abuse, you have hypocrisy, people coming to church, putting on their best, acting their best, going home, cussing the kids out, abusing the kids through the week, letting abuse occur around the kids, to the kids, and not doing nothing about it. You have people coming into church, going to church who they preach, so called teach, so called learning, and ain't none of it going beyond them doors when they walk out the building. I hate that shit with a passion. I'm passionately against that kind of shit. That's why I was dating gangsters. Okay, that's why I was aligning. That's why I found myself aligning with souls. I'm thinking this is what it is. I found myself aligning with souls that were so called dark in the eyes of the church. You feel me? Kind of like rebelling because I was always about truth, you know? So, for instance, my first real boyfriend, perhaps my first love, I don't know. um, he was, like I said, he was a gangster and he was a crip. And it wasn't a secret of his family. He was, I don't know if, I think it was passed down to him, he was raised in that type of household, you know. And but I also saw that kind of figure, that kind of energy as a protector. And I needed that. I needed that in my life. I did. And I knew I had God, right? God has shown up. The energy of God, higher power energy, has shown up in my life in different ways where I couldn't deny. Like, this life is, there's more to this life than what we see and what we can touch and what we can hear, because even at a young age I got signs and signals like, there's a reason for this, there's a reason for that, you're not alone, you know. But in the physical, I didn't have those protector figures. Even though I had a godfather, he was not protecting shit. He was a pedophile himself, you know. I lived with a pedophile, my older adopted brother, um and then the protector of the pedophile, his mother. You know what I mean? So I think eventually my spirit and my heart became very much drawn to these figures out there in the world, these male, masculine, gangster, tough, ain't nobody effing with me or what I got going on. Like, and if they do, I got something to do about it. I got something to say about it. I'm going to do something about it. I was kind of easily falling for those types, like, for the longest. And, low key still is. But, not, I don't like to get in trouble, so I don't want nobody who be regularly getting in trouble, right? And I'm not trying to put nobody in regular trouble, um, or in trouble regularly. But yeah, that boyfriend. So again, I met him. I know I'm all over the place. This is free talk. This is how I talk. But anyways, I met him, like I said, so he sent somebody over to me in ninth grade. I remember we were at school and I did not accept. And then the following year, I was a sophomore, and I remember I was walking to class and I saw him. And it was like he stood out and he was standing in front of the library. And I remember he had like a diamond in his ear or something, and it was shining and blinging, and I could tell he was bad boy material, and I was a good girl, and I totally was, I totally fit that stereotype of the good girl loving the bad boys. That was me for sure. So yeah, I remember he was handsome, and we locked eyes at one point, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay." So then at one point, I remember it might have still been that same day or another day. I was walking to class, and I was almost to class, and he walking behind me, and I'm like, "I know your class ain't this way," because I was in a AP class, and I'm in that area. I'm like, "Where are you going?" And so he was behind me, and he was like, he just started talking to me like, "Where your boyfriend at?" I was like, "I don't have a boyfriend." He was like, "Oh yeah," and so I think it was that day at that time, like we exchanged Did we? I can't remember because I also remember a friend of his running interference for him. Um, yeah, I don't know if we exchanged right there, but I do also remember having an art class, and he had a friend that was in that class with me. And I remember him running interference low key for the guy that I started eventually dating. Um, yeah, somehow, something like that. But I do remember that's when we first kind of started, interacting. I remember that's when I was like, he's attractive. And it was funny because later on he told me that I was attractive because I had some blue that day I had blue dickies on. Like these big shorts, blue dicky shorts. I was a tomboy. So but eventually I guess what happened is he got kicked out and he got kicked out the school and that was when his friend ran interference. Now, I don't know what it was about the number and stuff because I do remember I think I had to give, yeah, I had to give my number to his friend, and then his friend gave my number to him, and then he hit me up. Um, yeah, and I remember we didn't even start dating until after he got kicked out. And I remember I had like an AP exam and our multiple, and we had started talking, and I remember I was just so focused, on my stuff. Like I wanted to pass my test and all that. And so he was asking me like, when we're gonna be boyfriend girlfriend type. And I was like, I don't know, I gotta focus on my test. Like I gotta take this test, like I couldn't do both at the same time. Like and so then I was like, okay, look, my test is on this day at this time. So after the test, consider us together, you know. Oh my gosh, I remember that. And so I remember like my test ended. It was over. And we talking, calling me baby and all that stuff. So that was so cute. And I miss them kind of days, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was very untainted and uncorrupted yet by the word. Well, not that I'm corrupted, but I basically did not know the world, right? Obviously, I was a teenager, 15, 16, something like that. That was sophomore year in high school. So, um, yeah, but that was my boo for a minute. He was. I was infatuated. He was tall, dark skinned, and skinny. And he definitely dated me. Like, and I think that's something, right? Because really, to be honest, okay, I probably had another boyfriend after that while I was in college. Cause that one we had to break up because he was more grown than me and he was ready for things that I wasn't ready for. So eventually we had to break up because I was still a virgin and I wasn't trying to change that. He obviously was not a virgin. So eventually we broke up, but we like dated. Like I remember we went out for my birthday. We was in Santa Monica, went to the movies. He was not ashamed to be next to me, be with me. Like he was very masculine. To me, he was a protector. He was. And maybe that's something I'm supposed to be pulling from this because I still be wanting that kind of energy, but I don't weaken myself just because I'm wanting to attract that into my life. Like I protect myself, you feel me? But I still kind of melt for that kind of energy. So, but yeah, that was that was my boo. For real. And he was very assertive. And he I remember like one time. I was so bad. One time I had made a friend. I went to a party. Well, okay, no. I had this friend already. I forgot. I had this friend already because I had already met this friend at a party. That was something I did like to do. I did like to dance. So I did like to go to parties. So I did go to a party once. My friend, her friend had a party at this place. So I got invited to go there and I went and I met a friend. That was when I was 15. Big, tall dude. Big, tall, buff, deep voice. We danced and He asked for my number. I remember that's when the sidekicks was out because I remember he pulled his sidekick out and I put my number in there. He too was big, masculine. Like I said, deep voice. I felt very much like I could be protected, by him. And that was very interesting and ironic because I remember that night I was picked up by my adoptive brother and I think my cousin, um, but literally like my abuser. Right? Ain't that crazy? But he wasn't abusing me no more at that time. He couldn't because I was strong. But he picked me up, from the party. But anyways, I had met that person. I had met that friend, right? So we was just friends. So I was already friends with him before I started dating the guy from my school, the gangster. Now this one, he wasn't no gangster, but he was tough, tall, and you know, but he wasn't no gangster, but he knew gangsters. So anyway, one day now, as I'm in this relationship, one day, me and my boyfriend, we're hanging out at my house. So like I said, it was public. I was allowed to have a boyfriend. It was cool. So we're hanging out at the house. I get a call from my friend. Now I wasn't cheating, but I get a call from my friend, and I know my friend had wanted to be dating me. He had asked me multiple times before, like when we gonna be together, and I wasn't ready to be with him. And then I ended up in a relationship, and he didn't know. But then this day he had to find out because we're in the room watching SpongeBob. I'm pretty sure that's what we like to watch. And my phone ring, I answer it, it's my friend, right? It's my friend. So he asking, what am I doing? I didn't want to hurt his feelings because I knew he liked me and I'm a softie. And so I was like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my friend. But I was sitting next to my boyfriend. I was not cheating. I was just soft, with letting dude know like I have a boyfriend. Um so at some point we got off the phone. My boyfriend was not having it. He was like, Antoinette. I was like, huh? And so he was like, who is that? I was like, my friend. And he was totally justified in being angry. I wasn't able to, break it to my friend like I got a boyfriend now because he had been wanting to be my boyfriend. And even when I was single, I was saying no. And then I found somebody I was actually really attracted to. And then I'm like, yes to him. But this dude still want to be my friend. So anyway, my boyfriend goes, he basically like, I'm about to throw your phone. I'm about to throw your phone. I was like, why? And I told him, he was like, I told him what happened. I said, well, that's my friend. And I know he liked me. And I don't know if you know yet that I got a boyfriend, whatever, whatever. He was like, F all that. Like, I was like, you want me to call him back? He's like, yeah, call him back and tell him. I was like, okay. And he was totally justified. I was just not understanding how to handle the situation. So I call him back and I tell him like, hey, I got to tell you something like um and I told him like I actually have a boyfriend now and I'm with my boyfriend like right here right now. So I just didn't know how to tell you that. And so he literally was like, it's cool. I knew you had to be something, but I'm still be your friend. Kind of shit. I feel like somebody else listening to this might be like, damn, what was you looking like? But I think that this is important to reflect on because there was an energy that I did have, but I didn't really know that I had it. But I think, and this is where this becomes more important right now today because earlier I just couldn't get over thinking about how growing up as a female, a young woman, I was very often, and I guess this is why I also brought up church, very often and at church a lot by older women, just especially the one that raised me, especially the one that raised me, was made to very often feel like less about myself. Like That was the mission of the adults in my life, most of them, especially the women, especially the one, primarily the one that raised me. And like, I remember one time sitting on the porch in front of the house. Everybody knew I was friends. I had friends. Like, we all were friends. We lived on a cul-de-sac. So I was friends with the other kids my age on the block. And not unfortunately, but it just so happened they were pretty much all boys. The only two girls, it was three girls I was friends with. They lived around the corner. They didn't live on my block. So primarily, I would be like hanging out with the guys that lived on my block. And sometimes we would link up with my other friends, our other friends. It was all of us. Like, we'd be like a big group. So, um, but I just remember like this, I mean, very often the other girls weren't there, you know? Um, and I remember like sitting on the porch and all my male friends, just about all of them, are on the porch too, but we just hanging out. We literally, even my little cousins will hang out with us, and it's a boy and a girl, and we're just hanging out. And I just remember going inside the house one time around that, it was that day, and I remember my adopted mama saying something like, "Yeah, with all them boys in your face," or something like that. I'm like, these is my friends. And like, these are my friends. Like, they would come to my birthday celebrations. I'd go to theirs. Like, she knew them. And it was just like she'd have these moments where she'd really get ugly with me. And that was one of the moments. And she said that, all them boys in your face. And like, boys in my face. These are my friends. Like, validated by you. Like, these are my friends. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't make no sense, but I hear the word in my head as I speak, jealousy, but that sucks because I was supposed to be my mother, right? Like, the lady raising me, but that was real. She did a lot, me growing up, to make me feel like self-conscious, not have self-esteem, not be confident, self-confident, not like my beauty, like, very often, most of my life growing up, I would not think I was beautiful. Would not think I was pretty. I would think that at times some guys found me attractive or whatever, but I would not. I think I was just really made to not have beauty, how I look, in terms of a good way, not to have that as a primary focus. Looking in the mirror was like not a good thing to do. Like, admiring myself was not a good thing to do. If I was ever caught admiring myself, something, they'd say something. I say they, I mean like my adoptive mom or my adoptive sister, more so my adoptive mom, right? So it was like not to be a priority to think that I was cute ever, even though most of the time I was. So, but also I wasn't about that. I wasn't about like, oh, attracting dudes. And like I said, I was a tomboy, which was a part of why I had so many male friends. But again, also, we lived all on the same street. Beyond that, I wasn't making male friends like all the time. It was because of where I lived. It was proximity. you know and so, anyway, yeah. Now that day, sitting in the room with my boyfriend, I had to call my friend back, and he was like, "Well, cool, I'm still be your friend, but and all that." So it was cool. And then after that, my boyfriend told me he felt better, and I apologized, for being, somewhat dishonest. Um, but yeah, I mean, first love kind of situation. That was my boo. I cannot lie, that was my boo. He was. I'm trying to remember for how long. I really don't remember, but I do remember. Yeah, we broke up because I wanted to maintain my virginity, and he was getting frustrated. Yeah, cuz we would hang out, like, I would go over to his house, and his mom and dad would let me over there, and he would come over my house, you know, hang out, never in my room or nothing like that, but he was allowed over. Like I said, I took him to church, but I remember one time he told me he was not going back. And I was like, I understand. Um, but very often, I don't know, I guess I get lost on who my first love was. Cause I do sometimes, Well, maybe this is just a follow-up. Um, as I'm just wondering, where is all this coming from? Like, why? Why is this important right now? And I need to check on my food. So I'm gonna pause. Okay, back. I just pressed pause and now I'm back. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, why is this coming through? But I think I'm picking up on something because recently I did a reading, and then I was sharing like my own personal piece, and it was related to like a time that I was in love, and but he was not the first person I loved, like that person I was talking about at the time, which was he was very much a narcissist. But I dealt with him like for 13, 14 years on and off. Um, but I was talking about how I miss feeling the way I felt in terms of being in love with him because I haven't really experienced that same type of feeling or like internal experience since him. Even though I know for sure, he is never to come back into my life. He eventually became, if not already was, a bona fide warlock. Okay, but I guess some spirit God is trying to remind me about where when it really began. When it really began, yes, it was it was that one, that Taurus. I'm like, I don't want to say his name, but he was a Taurus. The one that I had the 13, 14 situation with, he was a Sagittarius. And then there was someone before him. He was a Sagittarius. Okay, because that's what happened. So the guy I was dating, that when I was still a virgin, I had to break up with him. And I remember I was so hurt. I was crying and stuff. I remember we both had these chains. Well, I had a necklace, he had a chain, and I would wear his chain and he would wear my necklace. And my necklace, it had my name on it, which it had my nickname on it. Now this is crazy because my nickname, I just saw that nickname on the back of a car Friday when I got to work, and I had never seen the car before with that nickname on the back of it. Um, and I was like, it was weird because I went to park in a parking spot that I never parked in before, and I was being very like picky about where I wanted to park, and so then I parked, and then I'm like getting ready, and I looked up and I gasped. I was like, and I was like, that's my name. So it was literally somebody, like, it was a customized license plate. It had no numbers or nothing. It was just that name. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I was definitely made to see that, and that definitely it was my name. Even though nobody I know currently calls me that. I've moved and I haven't really like kept that name with me. I just went back to using my first name. But at that time when I was dating that guy, like that was primarily what people would call me. And so I had a necklace. It was actually a gift. Somebody got it made for me once, I think for Christmas or a birthday present or whatever. And yeah, I would let my boyfriend wear it, and then he had me wearing his chain. So I remember the day we broke up, I had written a letter because I was trying to, like express myself clearly. And I failed to realize that he was high because I didn't get high. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink at that time. And so I thought he was clear minded reading my letter. Later, like a later date, much later, like I'm in college. Like we were talking about that moment, and he was like, I don't remember that letter. And I was like, what? And I remember I was crying, and we exchanged necklaces. Like he gave me my necklace back, I gave him his chain back. It was such a little heartbreaking teenage love moment. But I remember later he was like, he don't even remember that. And I was like, and that's when I realized, like, you were high. Like you was high or drunk or something. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it. So I had broken up with him, right? And then time went by, I went to college. I go to college, I still have the other friend that had called me that one time. I still have him in my life. And we're still connected. And we started dating after I went to college. That was weird because then it became kind of long distance, but he still wanted to date me, so and I was like, okay. So then we started dating, and then things started to go downhill after about a year. Um because he was somewhat unfaithful, and I lost trust, so I had to break up with him. So we broke up. And then I was like not dating for a long time. I was back in church because I had kind of stopped going after going to college, kind of just for a little bit, but not long. Then I started going back after I broke up with him. It was like kind of, take care of myself because that was a significant breakup. I was losing weight. It was crazy. Like, and other people saw my losing weight, like, oh, look at you. And I'm over here stressing, can't sleep, barely eating. And that's why I was losing weight. So you got to be careful when you see people losing weight. You don't ever really know, like, unless they invite you into the conversation, like, yeah, I'm working out. Da, da, da. And crazy thing was, I was working out, but I also wasn't really eating. So it was like I was low key harming myself. I didn't realize it. Not could not sleep. Um, so I was experiencing insomnia and stuff. So it was crazy. And then after some time in college, I was reached out to by somebody else I knew from from the area of home. And then that's the narcissist, the Sagittarius I got to start dealing with for about 13, 14 years, on and off, back and forth. Very volatile situation. So that was the one that I was referring to when I was talking about like the way I felt love, like, I was kind of missing it. And I guess spirit is like, hold on, what about your first love? Like your real first love for real. Like, cause that was love. It just wasn't like grown love. Like again, like we wasn't having sex. I was a virgin. We did little, here and there, little stuff. But um I think I'm being reminded like, yo, that was pure. That was pure. Like he wasn't able really to even F with your head because y'all wasn't going that far, you know? It was a pure situation. And I don't think it's about him again. I think it's about the time of my life that I'm being reminded of. Like you were calm. If I think about it and then process it verbally, I was calm. I believed in love. I believed in people changing. Um, I liked what I liked, and I wasn't ashamed about it. Right, brought him to church and everything. Um, liked what I liked, wasn't ashamed about it. Uh, I was protective of my purity. You know, he was protective of my purity. I mean, I think at that point we might have reached a limit, but he was like him being involved with the gangs and smoking, and he was very much grown for his age, but he wasn't trying to make me that way. Like he wouldn't really bring me around them people. He wouldn't be trying to have me smoke or drink, like none of that. He liked me for me, and I liked him for him. And it was very innocent. Like I said, like I remember his mom bringing him to my house, you know, and obviously my adoptive mom had to allow it. Like I wasn't sneaking or nothing. She had to allow it. I had to ask, you know. So it was real. I remember going to Santa Monica celebrating my birthday. I remember popping up on him to celebrate his birthday, and he let me. It was crazy because we I don't think I don't know if at that time we were dating or not, but I just remember he had a birthday party, and again, it was like Ratchet City, and uh shoot, that probably was when that song was out. Rack City. I can't remember, but he, he was one with the ratchet type of vibe, and I wasn't. But yet we did really, really dig each other. And I remember going and surprising him at his birthday party. I remember his dad gave me the information where he was. And I wanted to surprise him, and not to like catch him or nothing. I genuinely wanted to surprise him for his birthday. thinking that he would like to see me, because we were really into each other and he was happy to see me. And it was crazy because there were females over there. That's why I said, like, I don't think at that time we were dating. Um, it might have been us getting back. No, it wasn't us getting back together because I was still in high school. I can't remember, but I do remember my sister taking me. My sister took me to go surprise, and I remember she was sitting in the car waiting in the parking lot. Like everybody was in support of our relationship, even though I'm on kind of one side, he on another, but not really, because we was both at the same school, so we wasn't that far apart in terms of like where we came from, but in terms of, I guess, lifestyle, we did have different lifestyles, but shit, everybody was in support of it. His family, my family, like nobody was in the way of us spending time with each other. Nobody was trying to have us like, oh, y'all can't do that. Y'all can't do. And again, he wasn't really trying to have me in a way that I wasn't trying to be had. It was just, I think it got to a point to where he was just, unable to not express his frustration because of what he was already used to. And that's where the line, that's where the limit was reached. But yeah, like the time I went to go surprise him at he was at a motel or hotel, and see, that's how I say like how grown he was because his parents let him do that, and we were still teenagers. But yeah, and there was a bunch of people up in here, and and it was so funny because I remember I knocked on the door, and his friend who had ran interference for him with me was there, and I guess he was the one that like answered the door. And it was funny because he goes to my dude and was like, I didn't tell her. And then my dude was like, bro, like chill, like it wasn't nothing like that. So he comes to the door, and we standing outside the room. People come in, like females. I remember, I think his sister, because his older sister too, he had an older sister and brother that were like real street as well, so they would like, they kind of influenced him in being street. So like I said, he was raised in it. But I remember that boy stood outside that room with me on that balcony of that motel. It was not a hotel, but it was definitely a motel in Long Beach, California. And he stood outside with me on that balcony, and we talked for so long. Like, talked, giggling, laughing, like he missing his own party, but he was happy that I had come to see him. And I had given him a gift. And I remember he was wearing like all brown. That's crazy. I remember that. Um, but he was not ashamed. You know what I mean? Like he was not ashamed. He was not shy. He was not trying to be funny with me, and I was a priority. You feel me? I was a priority. And even with the birthday party, like he knew I probably wouldn't have wanted to be up in there. Like that was not my style. That was people smoking, drinking. That wasn't me. And it was like he didn't want that to be me. And he didn't even want that to be me. So it was dope. Like we standing outside, just talking, and we was talking for a long time. It wasn't like, okay, yeah, I gotta get that back to my party. Like we didn't even want to leave each other. So I remember that, and I guess spirit is just trying to remind me of that because I don't know. Maybe it's due to come back around. It doesn't necessarily have to be him. Well, now that makes sense, like reconciliation. But I don't think it has to be him. Like we're on other sides of the world now. I don't think that that's what that is, but I do think it's something like about that time. I feel like it's something with spirit letting me know, like, yeah, like that was a time, and it was good, and it's due for you to get back to that time, not, but no longer as the young naive rose eyes colored, with rose tinted glasses and stuff. But now I'm reminded of this card that came out, the wisdom card from the Rumi's deck. Rumi's gift deck is wisdom, but now with wisdom, right? But that was love, and it was pure, you know it was pure, and it was allowed, and nobody was in the way. I had friends, a couple friends, like female friends, that showed themselves, and he the one that opened my eyes to it. It was like, oh yeah, your friend was for sure flirting. are for sure trying to be up in my face. She ain't supposed to be doing that. Like he had code. And I remember like out because I wasn't thinking of them, my female friends like that. I was very naive. I wasn't thinking of them like that. He like, she shouldn't be touching me and she shouldn't be reaching. I remember one time we was sitting in the room and he would always eat sunflower seeds. And he had the bag of sunflower seeds on his lap. And I'm sitting next to him. And one of my female friends, because I would always call, like, I don't know, I just loved hanging out with my friends. And one of them wanted some sunflower seeds and she just grabbed them from his lap. And he told me, he's like, she shouldn't have done that. Like, that's not cool. And it was another time, like, he had a mole on his neck. And I don't know if this was the same friend or a different friend. I think it was a different friend. She was like pointing out his mole and she like touched it. Like went she was very close. He was like, she wasn't supposed to do that. And it was another friend where she was talking in front of us once, and these are actually the three girls that lived around the corner. One, two, three, just like that. Actually, yeah. It was each of them. Like each of them showed their ass at a different moment. But the third girl, she one time was talking about her panties. She was, and it was just all these different things that I wouldn't do these things. And so I'm not really, but these were my friends even before I met him. So then I'm like, they not on some weird shit, but he called them out like, yeah, they are. He was like, she don't need to be talking about her panties in front of me. Like, I'm your man. Like, I'm a dude, like what, so he was very smart. For a young guy, he was very smart. In terms of the street, yeah, he was very street smart, social smart. I was a schoolgirl. I was a church girl. You know what I mean? So it worked. But yeah, I don't know. Something's just telling me like, don't forget about that time. Like your first love was not that narcissist. He wasn't even the second. He was the third, but he was the longest situation that I had. And the one before him, I always would refer to him as the most serious one that I had, but not really, because that's only because we were over 18. But I forget. I did. I forgot about no, the real first one. That was your Taurus. That was from school. You know, it was so pure. It was, even though he was a gangster, it was so pure. It was so pure. So, oh man, I was not expecting to talk about him. I was not expecting to talk about that when that song came up in my mind, my first love. So look, I can't say for sure what's to come. Like, are we to reconcile? I don't know. Um, I'm not. I wasn't even thinking about that. I think it's a matter of energy. I think it's a matter of energy coming back around. And I think it's just because of everything that I've been through and everything I've overcome and me maintaining um, my lover girl heart and soul. And I am about love. I am for love and love in many different ways. It's not just romance and relationship. Love is many different things. Um, and for me, largely, it's been in a romantic way with relationships, but it's also been spiritual. It's been with the self love. It's, you know, but yeah. I guess I was just being made to reflect on that. Like, don't forget about the real first, because it was. There was a real first, and it was pure. It was not toxic. It was somebody who stood up for my relationship with him and his relationship with me. As gangster as he was not toxic. He wasn't. He wasn't toxic. He was committed and he was strong about it and he was passionate about it. But he wasn't toxic. Now I don't know how he is today, but because we not together and none of that. But I think it's just a matter of spirit trying to open my eyes. Like, remember that part of your love journey. because I have been stuck on the one, the narcissist, the 13, 14 year one, which served its purpose. It sure did. But there was something about that first experience, and there's something to still be appreciated about it and not forgotten. And I'm closing with perhaps to help me get prepared for something else. And I'm gonna end it right there with one. I just saw an hour and 8 seconds on the clock. I'm gonna end it there. That's what I'm gonna do. I just had to process that verbally, and the best way to do that is to share that with, oh, yeah, yeah, share that with my Mystic Love Club. Yeah, I'm gonna end that there. Thank you for listening. I'm about to eat something, and yeah, thank you for listening. Until next time. Thank you. Bye.